Hi, thanks for joining us, and welcome to the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Today, we're going to find out about growing African violets, we'll discover the benefits of attracting purple martins to your yard, and we'll answer your gardening questions. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South, so stay with us.
This is a production of WKNO Memphis. Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Goodwin's Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Ms. Marion Zoller. Marion is a master gardener right here in Shelby County, and Andy Williams is here. Andy is the director of the Lichterman Nature Center. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for asking us.
All right, well, this is going to be a good show. All right, Ms. Marion, let's tell the people about African violets.
African violets are a wonderful plant.
Okay.
They're the most popular house plant in the world.
Okay.
And they were discovered in Africa, in Tanzania in 1884.
Okay.
And since then have discovered 20 different species.
Wow.
And from that, they've developed over 17,000 different registered African violets. And the scientific name is called St. Paulia.
Okay, St. Paulia.
St. Paulia,
Right.
and they're in the Gesneriid family.
Okay.
And they are a wonderful, wonderful plant to grow. And I have brought some of the different Gesneriid family.
Okay,
Of course,
let's take a look at it.
this is an African violet.
Beautiful.
And this particular name is Rivali, and you can see the symmetry. It's really, this is what we usually grow. And then I brought a few other species. This is a Streptocarpus, and its registered name is Bristol's Daisy Doodle. Isn't that a funny name?
Yeah, it is, Daisy
And
Doodle.
then this is a Primulina. It was previously called a Cerita, but within the last 2 years, they've changed the name.
Look
of
at the
it.
leaves. Oh, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And they have different color blossoms also.
Okay.
And this is the Clumnia, and its name is Apollo. And
Apollo. Okay.
Apollo, yes. And it's, like I said, there's a whole group of these, and there's about 20 different species here that you can grow. And our club grows many of these plants.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Now, the growing conditions of these are similar, but I'm going to be talking mainly about African violet
Okay, it's fine.
conditions. And the main thing is light.
Okay.
If you want blossoms, you've got to have good light.
Good light.
And majority of people grow their African violets in a window.
Mm-hmm.
And a north window or an east window would be preferable.
Okay.
But if you don't have that, you can grow them in the west or the south if you'll put a sheer curtain between them, just
Okay.
to diffuse the light. You don't want to ever grow them in direct sunlight.
Okay.
And or you can just set them back from the window in that room if you
Okay.
want to. Now, those of us who grow a lot of them, and
Which would be you, right?
that would be me.
All right.
That would be me and many of our members. We grow them under fluorescent light,
Okay.
and usually 2 40-watt bulbs, a cool light or a warm white light,
Okay.
or a grow bulb would be what you would
Grow
be
bulb,
wanting
okay.
for those. But just be sure your plants get plenty of light. Usually about 10 to 12 hours
Wow. Okay.
of either, but you want to be sure that they get at least 8 hours of darkness.
Okay. Let me ask you this. So if it gets too much direct sunlight, what would that look like?
Well, it would probably burn the leaves.
Burn the leaves. Okay.
It would have, you would have a burnt place on your leaves.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. They usually like a temperature of about what humans like, 65 to 75. They will tolerate more or less without dying, but they won't do their best.
Okay.
Then water. Water needs to, all of us need water, we need to drink. So we need it to be at room temperature, tepid type water, because cold water, if you got it on here, would spot the plant, the leaf.
Okay.
And well, you can water from the top, just lift your leaves and water. And but when it gets through there, don't leave it sitting in the water.
Okay.
They do not like to have wet feet.
Okay.
And if you water from the bottom, just set it in some water and let it absorb it for about an hour, and then take it out. Again, it doesn't like cold, wet feet.
Now, how much water are we talking about? Because you know, watering or the water regime kills more plants than anything else.
It kills more violets than any one thing. And so I'm glad you asked that question, because one of the ways you can tell is you could lift this leaf, and if the surface was wet, don't water it anymore.
Don't water, okay.
And then if it's slightly dry, then you could water it.
Okay.
And then you want them to dry out just a tad bit.
Okay.
Before it. And they need something to eat. They need fertilizer.
All right.
And so about 1/8 of a teaspoon, we usually use either orchid fertilizer or African violet fertilizer.
Okay.
About 1/8 of a teaspoon to a gallon of water.
Okay.
And about once a month, they recommend that you flush it with just plain water.
Okay.
To get any mineral buildup.
Sure.
Flushed
All that
out of-
salt that builds
Yeah.
up around the rim.
Right.
Sure. Sure. Now, can you easily find that fertilizer for your African violets?
Yes,
Is it-
you
okay.
can find it most anywhere, and our club carries some too,
Okay.
and we do sell to the public.
Okay, good deal.
Okay, and we usually like to have these growing in about 50 to 60% humidity.
Okay.
If you have air conditioning or heating going, sometimes it gets a little dry. You could set it in a tray on top of petals that have some water underneath it, just to have some moisture coming up over it. Not that the pot sits in the water, but it sits above the water.
Okay.
And then the soil you have is a light soil. And even though some of them call themselves African violet soil, sometimes they'll be a little bit heavy. So just mix some perlite in with that.
Okay.
And you'll have a light soil. They like a light soil. And when you're potting your violets, don't overpot.
Don't overpot.
Yeah.
What do you mean by overpot?
Overpot means to put a little plant in a big pot, because it'll get too moist. And like I said,
Much water.
too much water will kill. You want to wait till your plant is slightly out, what we call pot bound.
Okay.
The roots are in there. You want it full of roots. And a lot of times it'll start blooming its best when it gets slightly root bound.
Okay. Slightly.
Slightly
Okay.
root bound. But when it begins to get more than slightly, you need to take it out of that pot and put it into a bigger one, or cut down some of those roots and get into a smaller one.
Okay, now while we have a little time left, can we talk about the convention? We want to make sure we get that in there for our viewers.
Okay. Our club is going to host the Dixie African Violet
All right.
Convention. We're going to be at Olive Branch, Mississippi,
Okay.
at Whispering Woods Hotel and Convention Hall, April the 12th, which is a Friday, from 1 to 5, and Saturday, April the 13th, 10:30 to 4.
Okay.
Our club meets each month, the third Saturday.
Third Saturday, okay.
And we welcome visitors. At the convention, we're going to have 7 vendors out of state, and they're going to have supplies and plants. We're going to have a show and sale, and it's open to the public. Our club is open to the public, and we
good.
meet the third Saturday of every month from 1. Well, we have a social hour at 12, which when we do say social, we also encourage people to bring their plants in, and if they're having a problem, we try to help them. We have repotted plants and things that for the public, and so we welcome them to come during that social hour, and then we have our business meeting at 1.
All right, well, sounds good. Thank you for the information, Ms.
You're
Mary.
certainly welcome.
All right, African violets. There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks that might interest you. Here are just a few of them. All right, Andy, let's talk about purple martins.
Well, purple martins are one of my favorite birds. I mean, they're just so interesting.
Okay.
And over 1 million people in America keep purple martin colonies in their backyards. Unfortunately, a lot of these folks are not successful. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about ways that you can be successful.
Okay.
With the good thing about 1 million people giving it a shot is there's a lot of great science behind it. And in fact, a lot of amazing science. I would encourage our viewers to do their homework if you're thinking about putting purple martin poles in your backyard. There's good information online. There's the Purple Martin Conservation Association has a website, easy to remember, purplemartin.org.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
but you can learn about the various types of housing. Basically, it comes down to those aluminum houses that you've seen for a long time, wooden houses that look along the same lines, and both artificial and real gourds. The gourds are my favorite, and actually, although I work at a nature center, the artificial gourds even more so. The biggest reason for that is that the artificial ones, they're made of plastic, and I brought one to have a look at, are so easy to clean. They provide insulation for the birds, which is something you want to take into consideration. The aluminum boxes can get kind of warm, and particularly here in the Mid-South. This particular one has a screw. It comes apart easily for cleaning. But also, talking about the science behind it, it has the right size hole. And the right size hole for birdhouses is really important. All sorts of birds pick their birdhouses out on the basis of first how secure they feel, but also can they get in and can predators get in. This particular one has a starling guard. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but starlings and house sparrows also like the same sort of houses that purple martins do. And so this gives enough space for the purple martins to get in, but it excludes the starling. So it's already built in. And this is very precise. I believe the dimensions are supposed to be 1 3/16 inches.
Wow.
And so you're out there with real gourds and your jigsaw, I mean, it just, what could go wrong with that?
I tell you the things you learn on this show. I didn't know that before.
Oh,
yeah, because they got to be able to get in and out of
exactly.
it.
And they figure out
that?
exactly what's the right space for the purple martins. But with purple martins, it's location, location, location.
Okay.
The ones east of the purple martins that live east of the Rockies are almost wholly dependent on humans for habitation.
Okay.
It started with Native Americans, and basically they come to associate humans with a place with fewer predators, and also, cleaning service. You can clean the gourds up. And so when you do your research on it, you're going to find that there are minimum and maximum distances from human houses that purple martins find attractive. Most sources say they need to be no closer to a house than 30 feet.
Okay.
But no further away, and it kind of varies on this, no further than 100 to 120 feet. The other requirement as far as doing your homework, as far as the layout, is that they don't like anything tall near it. And in fact, the conventional wisdom is they don't want anything tall like a house or really a tree within 40 feet. And that's because that's where hawks, owls live. They're natural predators. And so the location is just really important. Now, the timing is also important. They started coming into our area around the 1st of March.
Okay.
And people talk about the scouts coming out, and it's exciting. And you think of your middle picture, putting our human heads on that, it's like a Boy Scout looking around. But really, it's more like the early bird gets the worm. You get the adults that nested in that particular location. They overwinter in Brazil. Okay. And they find their way all the way from Brazil back to the area that they were hatched in. They come back year after year. They can find the houses, but the adults that have been there experienced, and they want to get the best houses, the best territory.
Sure.
When the birds we call the scouts arrive, they typically don't leave unless the weather gets cold. They may go south to get some food. Of course, food's very important.
Okay.
They feed out in open areas, like over lakes. Over fields like that. There are aerial insectivores. They eat nothing but bugs. And a lot of people have heard that purple martins eat a lot of mosquitoes.
I've heard that.
Yeah, and I hear that almost every day we talk about the purple martin houses. But I think that's just something to sell purple martin houses, to be quite honest. They do eat mosquitoes, but they found at a best case scenario, less than 3% of their diet are mosquitoes. mosquitoes like to buzz around low places, swampy areas, and that sort of stuff. Whereas swallows well, purple martins are really large swallows. They're fun to watch fly, but you notice they're always way up there. And so they're snagging things, dragonflies, bigger bugs that they can catch up in the air. And so the mosquitoes are unlikely to perform an important part of their diet, although it's nice they do eat a few. Anything that looks juicy, that they'll
eat it, right?
But it's not just a main part of their regular diet.
Okay.
But you want to watch your colonies. A lot of people say, oh, they got lost in the storm. Well, you had this mental picture of purple martins as a whole group getting together and it's time to go to Brazil, or time to come back. But actually, they congregate at night, but they tend to fly solo. What really turns them off if they're already established in your yard, well, major turn off if the house sparrows or starlings get in their nest, because that is just downhill from there. Yeah. Also, predators can start getting in there. You need to make sure that you've got guards to keep snakes from going up. Raccoons and snakes are more ingenious. I mean, you go to the internet, you can see all sorts of pictures of unlucky purple martins with lucky snakes. It's just like having a cafeteria up there if they can get up there. Also, owls can be a big problem, particularly at night. Owls are strong enough; they can, their beaks can crush, turtle shells. They can just rip right through that aluminum if they're hungry enough and motivated. So it's another plus for either wood or plastic or even a gourd. Wow. Okay. But good purple martin landlords check the nest once a week. And that's intimidating at first, but during the day, the adults, particularly during the day, the adult males are flying around looking for, the females actually during the day, they're looking for food and that sort of stuff. You just wheel it down, you look inside, you make sure that you count the young and track them. You make sure that they're not getting any parasites. Okay. You can treat those really quickly. But also, you look around the ground to see if you see feathers. Sign of predation. Yeah. But it's really a project, it's a family project, and the internet has changed everything about that. You can go online, particularly to purplemartin.org, and compare notes about how you're doing with the hatching success rate, when the birds come, when they go, what they're doing, what the problems are. It's more than just bird watching or putting birdhouses out. It's a family project.
I could tell you like purple martins. Your favorite bird. How about that?
They're beautiful birds. They're fun to watch, and they make a lot of beautiful noise.
All right, well, that's good information. Okay. All right, here's our Q&A session. All right, you ready for this?
Sure.
Andy? All right, Miss Marion. Okay. You feel like you want to jump in there? Come on in. All right.
Okay, will do.
All right, here's our first question. Okay. I have a Bermuda lawn and was wondering if this is a good time to aerate. Well, let me answer that question for you. This is not a good time to aerate your Bermuda lawn because it's still dormant, okay? The best time to do so will be late spring, early summer, because the Bermuda lawn will then be rapidly growing, and that way it can recover, okay? And you can use an aerator to do this. You can rent one. Any of the big box stores has one. There's a couple of rental places around that actually carry aerators. It pulls plugs, out of the soil. And it allows for oxygen to get down to the roots of the grass, water, and nutrients, okay? So again, it will help that root system and will help you with a good stand, help you with, get a good stand of Bermuda grass. So there's the answer to that, all right? Okay. You probably don't have Bermuda at home, do you?
Well, actually, we talked about limiting amounts of, some people call them tame grasses and all, but lawns are beautiful, but they do, if you have a monoculture yard, you do have problems like that when things build up. But there's certainly a place for turf grasses in urban landscapes.
Sure. There's some people who do like Bermuda lawns. Booker would be one of those.
Oh, yeah,
he's a big grass guy, so we got to say that for him. All right, here's the second question. I planted carrots, but they did not germinate. What do you think happened, Andy?
Well, it could be a patience issue. Carrots are just notorious for being slow to germinate. You want to make sure you got your soil conditions right, and that a lot of people, when they plant seeds, plant them too deep. They don't follow the directions and such. But with carrots in particular, they're known for being finicky. I would consider planting radishes on top of it. That way, while you're waiting for the carrots to germinate, you've got another crop, and you've got the radishes, and then you can see if you're being patient or if they've washed away. It just marks the location while you're waiting.
Yeah, carrots take about 3 weeks to germinate. Most people, are very impatient.
Yeah,
They want them
we
to
want
come
them to come up
straight
fast.
up. But they're real small seeds, though.
Yeah.
So your small seeds, you don't
And
need to
it's-
bury them that deep.
Yeah, it's real easy to over.
That's right. Just maybe about 1/4 of an inch is all you need, and it'll germinate.
Oh, a fun fact about carrots, they're relatives of Queen Anne's lace. And you kind of get that when you pick Queen Anne's lace. But like I said, the lighter seeds just don't need to go that deep.
Yeah, to go that deep. Okay. Do we all like carrots? You like
Oh,
carrots?
love carrots.
Oh, good.
I was a nutritionist, so I.
Oh, there you go.
Don't get me started.
They're good for you.
Good deal. Okay, here's our third question. Is it safe to add sawdust to my garden? Do you add any sawdust to your garden?
Well, I would let it compost for a while.
I would too.
Add it
Yeah.
as brown material in a compost pile. If you add it directly right now, it has a nitrogen demand that can take away from your existing plantings.
Yeah, it ties up the, fresh wood products will tie up nitrogen in the soil.
Nitrogen, yeah.
So I would wait till it's composted at least about a year. Just
Yeah,
my opinion.
Or just add, in your compost pile, just be sure 4-to-1 green to brown material. But it does, but once it's composted, it's wonderful. The texture is good. It's good moisture retention. You get some beautiful compost out of it, I understand.
Okay, so does everybody
Yeah.
here compost? You
Oh,
compost
yes,
this
I
morning?
compost.
Okay.
Yes.
Compost pile going pretty good right now?
It's going real good.
Oh,
It's
good.
real good. We have a lot of leaves, so that
and that helps.
really helps. Really
Okay,
helps.
that helps. How about you, Andy? You have a compost pile at
Yeah,
home?
I do kind of layered compost. I have a wooded area in the back that's kind of informal, but it's fun to dig down there. It's almost like being a detective. You remember when you put the various layers in there.
Yeah.
It's quite warm this time of year, too, to get close to the compost pile because it generates some heat.
Yeah. It will have some worms in there.
And worms, yes.
Yeah, worms will help out, so that's a good thing. All right, here's the next question. It says, can I bring a soil sample to your office for testing? Now, here's the deal with that, because we get that question all the time. You can bring a soil sample to our office, but it has to be shipped to our lab in Nashville. And we'll be more than happy to go over that procedure with you. So again, you can bring it, but we have some soil boxes available at our office. You can just use that soil, put it in the soil box. We'll label it, give you the soil information sheet that goes with it, and send that right over to our lab in Nashville. And Miss Debbie would be definitely happy to get that sample and analyze it for you.
Is there a fee?
There is a fee, $7.
Oh, that's a bargain.
That's $7 investment of your money. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
How long does it take to get results back?
This time of the year, you're going to be competing with a lot of the commercial farmers, so it may take a week or so. But if you do it like in the fall or something like that, which is a little slower, you can get your analysis back in a couple of days.
Oh,
And the nice thing about that, too, is they tell you what's deficient and what you need to add, and that's very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, the recommendations are excellent. Whatever it is that you're trying to grow, you're going to put that crop code on that sheet, and Debbie's going to look at it. She's going to be like, okay, they're trying to grow a vegetable garden, they're trying to grow grass, whatever the case may be, and you're going to get your recommendations according to what it is that you're trying to grow. So it doesn't get any better than that.
yeah, truly.
Yeah, before you had to almost have a degree in soil science to figure out the analysis and the recommendations, but now, user-friendly, any home gardener can understand it, you'll be fine. Or if you can't understand it, come to the office, we'll help you out with that. Sure. Okay, here's another question. How much sunlight do you need for a vegetable garden? What do you think about that?
The more, the better.
The more,
Yeah,
the better.
full baking sun all day.
Yeah.
Yes, 6 hours is a minimum amount, but 8 to 10 would be ideal if you can get it.
Yeah, you look at the origins of the plants. They all come from very warm climates, and the growing season typically dictated on the each plant has its own growing requirements.
Sure.
But the warmer the better, and like I said, there's full baking sun, good drainage.
Full sun. Now, do you have a vegetable garden at home?
Yes, we have a plot out at the Shelby Farms.
good.
And I've got a little one there close to the house, but I have to be very careful because it gets too much shade.
Okay,
so
too much
only,
shade,
yeah,
okay.
so it's, mainly flowers.
Okay.
But there's a few vegetables in there, but they don't do as well as they do at Shelby Farms.
Okay, because Shelby Farms, you're going to get full sun. You're going to
yes.
get exactly what you
Yes.
need out there.
That is a wonderful place. That's a
Good.
wonderful idea.
Good. Glad you mentioned that. Andy, quickly, do you have a vegetable garden at home?
Well, no, I have a lot of urban wildlife. And I hate to growing things and find that the armadillo and raccoons have beat me to it. But,
I think I've started a small garden at home. I might expand on that, so we'll see. How
I
it
grow
goes.
herbs.
Okay, and I do too.
Yeah.
So I might expand on that
do
this
that
year.
too.
All right, thank y'all. That was good.
welcome.
That's all we have time for today. Don't forget, you can send a letter or an email with your gardening questions. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee, 38016. I'm Chris Cooper. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join us next time for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Good Winds Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.